What if your second date, you went in with it and said, look, your breath smells bad, you dress funny, and I hated the restaurant you took me to? How fun of a date would you be? There's this magic 5 hours, and I've been challenging people for decades to do a 5-hour date. Some of you are in a phase of life where a 5-hour date's super impossible. You've got kids that you're taking to sporting events. You've got responsibilities all over the place in your churches, in your communities, and sometimes you just don't quite cut it. You just don't quite get out there on a 5-hour date. I want to challenge you to dedicate yourself to the magic 5 hours. I don't know why it's magical, that 5-hour mark. I don't know if 6 hours is overkill or if 4 hours just isn't enough, but all of that Dr. John Gottman research points to 5 magical hours. And what I would suggest is that you, at least bare minimum, put in 5 hours. You might need to break it up into two hour periods and one 1 hour period. Don't be fanatical on watching the clock, but do schedule it. I understand that you like spontaneity. I understand that you like to be surprised. I understand that some of you don't like to be surprised. But if you don't schedule in this 5 hours, if you don't schedule it in, you're probably not going to get the magic. You're probably going to run out of time. It's going to be put on the back burner because for some reason, we all have this habit of putting the rest of the world first because we don't want to disappoint anyone. And we assume that our lover is just going to understand, or they're in the same boat we are. They're just as busy. I want you to remember to devote 5 hours a week to intense, focused participation in an activity one-on-one with your spouse. If you're engaged, with your fiance, hopefully both your fiance or your spouse or your lover as well. So intense, focused, intentional time put in means no phones, no screens. So for 5 hours a week, you're going to fear the missing out. You're going to have FOMO at the beginning. It'll get easier. I promise. I want you to focus on each other. Don't have phones. Don't let kids interrupt. Unless there's a bone protruding from the skin, tell your kids to leave you alone. Don't do things like watch 2 movies or 10 episodes of something. If you want to watch an episode and then talk about it, that's probably as far as I'd say go. But I want you to share things with each other. I want you to share what you've heard in the news. I want you to share your experience, your high and your low for the day. I want you to talk about your future vacations. Now remember, this dedicated 5 magical hours is not a time to talk about problems. It's a time to talk about fun, joy, peace, things you love about each other, things you love about other people, things you love about your work, things you love about your next vacation, things you love about the blue sky in the morning in southern Utah, just whatever it is. I want you to make that 5 hours dedicated time to do the courtship. When we fell in love by focusing on hearing each other, getting to know each other, and putting our best foot forward. We didn't start our second date with telling our lover the problems we had with them on the last date. We just didn't. We wouldn't have got very far. What if your second date, you went in with it and said, look, your breath smells bad, you dress funny, and I hated the restaurant you took me to? How fun of a date would you be? So how many of you have been married for 30 years and on a date, all you did was complain to each other about problems that you've had with them? See, that's not romantic. That's not a pairing. That's not a reunion of 5 hours of connection and intimacy. There's another meeting for that we describe in other videos. Remember the magical 5 hours a week where you literally dedicate time and space to each other. Okay? You dedicate time and space to each other for courtship. So that 5 magical hours, that's super important for getting to know each other each week on a deeper level. It's not a time to make assumptions and tell the other one you already know how they think and feel. It's literally a time where you tell the other that you don't know and you want them to tell you who they are and explain themselves to you and update your information so that you have constantly new information coming in. Now remember, in another video, we've talked about confirmation bias. We've talked about where we've got memories of our spouse. And if we bring those memories forward as we're taking in new information, we'll have inaccurate information being memorized. So we might lose touch with our lover. We might literally not understand or know them anymore if we do that often enough. So we want to have these conversations and we want to have these moments together throughout a week, 5 hours where we magically get to know each other. So in long-term relationships, whether you're just starting at this end of it as newlyweds or engaged people, or all the way over here where Chris and I are at 33, 34 years of being married. It's important to have these magical moments. It's important to understand different ways of updating information. Always think through that lens. Always have these conversations, these stress-reducing conversations. One assignment that I'm going to give is part of this 5 magical hours, take some time and ask each other to just give me 15 minutes of what your last 24 hours was like for you. And I'm just going to listen, and I'm going to be on your team. I'm not going to educate you. I'm not going to give you advice. I'm not going to give you something to think about. I'm just going to listen, and I'm going to tell you that I'm on your team and that I've got your back and that I'm in love with you. Try listening to each other for 15 solid minutes without disagreeing, without giving advice, without educating or straightening up. Just listen, validate, tell them that you're on their team and that you got their back. I want you to do that every night for a year, just 1 year. Every single night, every single morning, maybe at lunchtime at break, but sometime every day, listen to each other for 15 minutes without interruption. And take that time. You can add that into your 5 hours. You have 4 hours, 45 minutes plus this. Put in those 5 magical hours. Do the assignment of the 15-minute listening exercise. Do it every single day for a year. See what changes in your relationship. Make sense? Love you all. We'll talk to you again. Coming at you live as often as I can. And there's a whole channel to subscribe to down there. All right? Talk to you later.